What is going on, everyone? It's your guy, Cole Jackson, back with another episode of the Film Room, where we're going to be answering the question, what is a pressure, from both the offensive and defensive perspective. If you're enjoying these breakdowns of the trenches, go ahead, click that like button, and subscribe so you can find your way back for more. Before we get into it, I want to take a second to say a huge thank you to the sponsor of the 2021 Film Room series. It's our friends over at the Flavor Cupcakery and Bake Shop, Harford County's sweetest bake shop and the winners of Season 4 of Cupcake Wars on the Food Network. Flavor specializes in freshly baked cupcakes and all the sweetest treats you can think of, as well as lactolome coffee and espresso drinks. Stop by for a delicious treat or a coffee and tell them the two guys watching football sent you. I've dropped all their information in the description below, so be sure to check them out. And now I'm pleased to be rejoined by the OG of the two guys watching football show. It's my man, MC. We're finally back together. How is it going, my guy?
Doing well, Cole. Doing well. It's good to see your face again. We were just saying before we started recording, we talk through DMs or whatever almost every day, but we haven't gotten together to actually record anything in a while because we've just been doing different shows with different people, and it's been a lot of fun. But yeah, it's good to be back to kind of where it all started.
It kind of became the two guys watching football with four other guys, and now it's morphed, but it's good. I mean, we got some great diversity in the content now. We got you and Denard on the defense. I'm on the offense. We got Adam on the post game. We got the deep cover guys with Kerry and Chris. It's been we built this up quickly, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it really has. I mean, that first week was just busy, just trying to get content together, get everything out. And then, the thing that kind of drives all of that is the game, right? You actually find time to watch the game and analyze the game and have, some kind of, educated opinion on what happened in the game. So, got to still carve out time to do that because that's kind of what props everything else up. So unfortunately in week one wasn't the outcome that we wanted, but Sunday night football just recently here, I mean, an amazing game.
Yeah, no doubt. And it was kind of, when we're looking at pressures allowed, which is what we're going to be looking at today, it was basically the tale of two tapes, because they went from a 54% pressure percentage allowed to about 2%, where they allowed, I think, one pressure, none of which were attributed to offensive linemen. I believe the one pressure was I think there was two. I think there was a hurry that Ricard got dinged with, and then a sack allowed that Latavius Murray got hit with on a blitz. And so, we talked about this a lot last week because, I mean, it was just the sheer nature of how many pressures allowed there were. But how do we determine who is responsible for the pressure, and what are you looking for when you're determining that? And people are doing different grading schemes, and so we said let's get together and let's actually try and write down and use the film to support it and answer the question, what is a pressure allowed? So that's exactly what Mike and I are going to do today. This is, before I get into this, I want to make it really clear. Everyone's entitled to watch the film how they want to watch it. Everyone's entitled to analyze the film how they want to analyze it. I think the key is, you develop definitions and you stay true to them. You're consistent in the application of them. And so what I think is the most important thing, and why I'm enjoying doing these film rooms, is you got to show your work. And there's nothing more showing your work than doing a film room, because, I mean, the analysis is quite literally right in front of you. And so, that's why we kind of want to do this, talk through, what the definition is, what I'm looking for on any given snap to apply that definition. So let's get right into it. So Mike, I'm gonna ask you, like, how do you define what a pressure is?
So I have a pretty broad definition or way of thinking about it. Definition almost sounds too formal for me because I guess I've never really thought about it that formally, but just in a broad sense, anything that can affect the quarterback, right? And affect is kind of the key word in that. In it can take a variety of different shapes, right? does the quarterback have to speed up? Right? Does he have to get rid of the ball before he actually is ready to get rid of the ball? Does he have to move? When he takes his drop and he reaches the top of his drop, does he have to move off of that spot? Um, is he maybe having to, and we saw this in the week 1 game against the Raiders at times because of that pressure rate. Um, is he having to avoid things and drop his eyes as part of that, having to move sometimes off of your spot? Sometimes because of what's happening right there in front of you, you end up dropping your eyes as a quarterback. You're no longer looking down the field. You're actually looking at that pressure that's, sort of the more immediate threat. And you're trying to evade that. You're trying to get to a point where you can get your eyes back downfield. That's really tough to do because think about how that picture changes, right? You're dropping back and you're reading the defense and you see one picture, you kind of drop your eyes because you got to look at this guy who's getting, put in your lap, and you got to evade him. Now you get your eyes back downfield and that picture is different than it was just, a split second ago. So that's a really tough thing to do. So it's just a couple of examples of what that means, because people may say, well, affect the quarterback. Man, that's so general. What does that mean? Well, that's kind of why I like it. As an approach, because it can mean a lot of different things, and you can use the film to really kind of help you identify those specific examples.
Exactly, and that's why being consistent in the application of that definition is so important to me anyway. And it's one of those things where you and I talk about the quarterback can actually be the one that allows the pressure and affects his own throw. Things like not getting the ball out quick enough. If you have a 6-man rush against a 5-man protection, that 6-man is the quarterback's responsibility. So if that's where the pressure comes from, it's that's on the quarterback to ID pre-snap and post-snap, and then make a throw, make a move off of that. So it's one of those things where it's all about looking at the play, seeing who affected the quarterback, and then asking and answering the question, whose responsibility was that man? And that's kind of what I wanted to get into with this second part of what's up on the screen. It's, and I have terrible grammar on there. It should say, what am I looking for on any given snap? This is what happens after, Sunday night football when I'm up till 2 a.m. recording with Adam. Poor grammar, just poor. But there's the two things that I'm looking for, and this is coming from me being into the offensive line. The first question I'm asking is, what was the protection? And what were the assignments of the players pass blocking? Because it's not just the offensive line. You got tight ends that could be chip blocking and peeling. You could have tight ends staying into block. You have running backs blocking. Like I said, there were 2 pressures allowed against Lamar Jackson last night, but both were kind of attributed to a running back and a fullback, and not the offensive line. So it can be the quarterback. So it's not always just the offensive line. So that's the first thing I look at. What's the protection? Is there slide protection? Because that, we've seen that a number of times where, they have a slide protection and it looks like a guy missed a block, but that was his assignment on that play. And so it's about determining that using, your knowledge of the game, of how these plays are consistently called, and, applying that to whose responsibility was the defensive player. And then secondly, it is, who was the defensive player that affected the quarterback's throw? Whose man was that? Tying that back to the assignments of the players. So, once I feel pretty confident in understanding the assignments, it really helps with kind of doing that step 1 to step 2 progression to break this all down. So, we're in the film room. Let's go to the film and let's look at what this actually means in reality. So we grabbed just 2 plays, and if people want more, we can get into it. But I grabbed 2 plays that were both from the Raiders game. We're waiting on all 22, obviously, from last night's game, and so I thought we could take 2 different plays, because you'll notice here on the first play, we're going to be looking more at the offensive line and how they react to this play. And then on the next play, we're going to be looking at one that involved the running back. So I want to show a little bit of diversity, one with kind of the 5-man protection of the offensive line versus having a running back in there. So I'm going to run this play through once, and then I'm going to turn over to Mike, and Mike's going to kind of walk us through what he's seeing from the defensive line here. So a lot going on, obviously. that we're going to have to get into here, and that's why I picked this play. This is the touchdown pass to Marquise Brown, and we are having buffering issues. I'm going to run this through one more time. Get a clean run through. Okay. So Lamar creates for himself, throws a strike, all is good. That said, he was under a lot of pressure. So let's pause pre-snap. So Mike, what are we looking at here?
Well, it looked like just kind of a traditional straight 4-man rush. Looks like they're kind of in a little bit of an over front. You can see if you're looking at it from the offensive perspective, you got Matt Crosby out there wide over Villanueva. You've got kind of a wide technique on Kevin Zeitler. I mean, he's almost in a 4-eye as opposed to even a 3 technique. So just to kind of explain some of that stuff without just throwing around terms, 3 technique would sort of be outside shoulder of the guard. And you can see where that defensive line, he's almost inside shoulder of Alejandro Villanueva. So he's in kind of a wide technique. And then as you continue to work, kind of move your eyes from right side of the line to the left side, you can see a little bit of a shade technique, maybe even a 2-eye, really, kind of on the inside shoulder of Phillips. And then Yannick, we all know Ngakoue, out there outside Ronnie in kind of that wide 9 kind of technique. And so when you were running it through, that's, I'm looking at their rushes and trying to see, okay, are they running any games? We got any twists or anything going on? And no, they just appear to be kind of a straight rush. And I think initially sometimes people will look at the tackles, right? And because you kind of see these guys coming off the edges and they're getting up the field and it looks like they're collapsing the pocket. And I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that, but I think ideally there would be room for Lamar to step up, right? Okay, those guys are going to come upfield. They're going to try to turn the corner. Your guys are kind of going to try to set an anchor against that. And then you can and you see Lamar even try to do that, right? He initially tries to take a couple, maybe a short little step or two to kind of climb the pocket. But then these guys, Zeitler, getting pushed back in his face there too. And to me, that was kind of the key with this particular rush is the penetration that guy at the 4-eye was able to get against Zeitler, because regardless of how it may have looked on the edges, I think that if you look to the side left guard and the center, and that kind of, how they're kind of both working on that guy, you see how they keep kind of the inside of the pocket flat, right? You hear people talk about the shape of the pocket. You want it, some people will say, well, you want it shaped like a U, right? Where your tackles are getting depth and kind of the interior, your guards and your center are kind of keeping it flatter. I like the saucer. Howard Mudd used to talk about a saucer. RSP to Howard Mudd, really great offensive line coach, where he says, yeah, he was more about width from his tackles, a little bit of depth, but also width, and then kind of having that flat interior inside. And so I think the one thing that I kind of agree with both of those, whichever one of those that you prefer, is kind of that flat interior, because now the quarterback has a place to step up. Well, Lamar wanted to, but he didn't really have that ability because of what's happening there with Zeitler. And so from this point, we talked about dropping your eyes, right? Now he's still got his eyes up, but he's got to get out of there. There's nowhere to step and set and make a throw from that position. So he's got to get out of there, which he does. And this is, just gives us an opportunity to kind of heap some praise on 8 as Ravens fans. And you and I, we've talked about this for years, and we have a group of other guys who we're in a chat with who we all talk about. He keeps his eyes up that entire time. I mean, he doesn't do that thing I talked about how some quarterbacks do that. And sometimes he's even guilty of doing that, but he didn't do it on that. I mean, he kept his eyes up the entire time. He gets out of that, which is magical in and of itself. Keeps the play alive, and then finds Hollywood in the back of the end zone.
Yeah, and from the O-line perspective, I mean, like you said, we got Tyson Williams coming out of the backfield, so it's 4-man rush, 5-man protection. You're typically going to see the double team somewhere. It happens to be over here. We saw this pre-snap alignment a few times, and what I think they were trying to do was kind of they were trying to exploit the speed here at the right tackle spot and get AV out in space. So a nice way they can do that is by also getting Zeitler out in space. So, I that seemed to be something they did a little bit, over and over again just to kind of try and exploit that. And I remember when I was watching this play live, everyone started tweeting about, oh, there's AV letting up a pressure again. But again, we got to look at what the responsibilities are. So, like you're saying, AV is gonna set vertically here. Well, it's more of a 45, but he's going to set on Crosby, and then he's just going to actually wash him out of the back of the pocket here. And so we got to remember the pocket should be like this, right? Like it should be Stanley's a little bit more to the left. He ends up getting driven back. I would have actually given us pressure here to both 70 and 79. It's kind of two pressures allowed because he can't step up right or left because Stanley's pushed right back into him, and so is Zietler. So that's why and we've talked about this a few times. It's really important to understand the QB drop point because that determines, how many steps the quarterback takes back will directly correlate with the pocket they're trying to create. So if he has a bigger drop, you might see a deeper pocket being created by the offensive tackles. But you see Lamar here take that step back. So he has to step back. And his role here is trying to push Crosby out of the back of the end zone. And if Zietler doesn't get pushed back here, he's stepping up to the right here probably. And he's got some space. And that's exactly why he washes him like that. So I'm not giving a pressure to Villanueva there because I think he's doing what his job was on this play. But if we look at, we're seeing Zietler getting pushed back there. Stanley's getting pushed back there. Two pressures allowed. Lamar makes, magic happen like he does so often. But I think this is a good example. And that's why I picked this play because, I saw people being like AV letting up a pressure, but it's that drop right there. And it's kind of what you're talking about with the saucer versus the U shape. I think it can be tough with a U shape because we talk about blind spots. What's more blind than if you're asking your tackles to push a guy out of the back? I mean, quarterback ain't got eyes at the back of his head, whether it's left side, right side. So I think that's probably where a guy like Howard Mudd is coming from with that type of approach. It's so you keep everything kind of in the quarterback's eyesight. And how many times have we seen Lamar create space and get chased down? And you're looking at, someone trying to knock the ball out, someone trying to, make a play on Lamar like that. Obviously, it doesn't happen very often because of his sheer speed, which is great. But I think it was really relevant in this play. So again, I think AV did his job here. He pushes him out of the back of the pocket. I mean, he loses ugly, but we've talked about this. This is a functional block. Like he's fine. And then it's on Stanley and Zietler there. So that's really why I wanted to pick that play. I think it shows where you really need to, as someone trying to break down film, take that step back, ask yourself, what is everyone's assignment? This was a really basic play. It's a straight up 4-man rush against a 5-man protection. I mean, it doesn't get much more simple than that. There's no stunts, there's no funny business, there's no delays. It's just, block your guy, base block your guy and get the job done. And unfortunately, 2 Ravens couldn't, but fortunately we have Lamar Jackson. He makes chicken salad out of chicken crap here. So, and then we're going to move on here to over to that play. This is one that got discussed quite a bit. And this one does involve the running back. So I showed this in my initial film room from last week when I was talking about the offensive line communication. I don't have the very, very start of this clip, but Carl Nassib, who we're going to see come outside here, is initially lined up as sort of that 4-eye technique, a little bit more in the 3-tech, but just I don't have the very, very start. So just so you know, that's kind of where he starts. So with that said, Mike, what's going on with the defensive front here?
So yeah, he does kind of stem outside, and you'll see that as the clip plays. He kind of starts lined up inside. I don't remember if he was in a tight shade, that 3 technique on Zeitler, if he was kind of in a 4-eye, or if he was kind of just standing up. Sometimes you get kind of that amoeba action where guys just kind of in 2-point stands and kind of just standing up. And then, he's going to rush from a different spot as the ball is snapped. And we kind of see that here with Nassib, where he's going to get outside. And, they run a little game, basically a little twist between him and Crosby. Crosby is the picker. Nassib is the looper. And so, Crosby is trying to do exactly what you see there. He's trying to occupy 2 guys so that Nassib can come free. And that's exactly what happens there. Now, on the other side, You had a guy head up on the center, 96, so he's going to occupy the center. And then you got a little action on this other side too, where you've got this, wide nine technique out there. I don't know if that's Yannick or not. I can't quite see his number. But then you've also got a DB. Okay, yeah, no, it's not Yannick. I don't know who 77 is, but you've also got a DB 39, kind of rushing off of that side as well, right? Trying to get some speed out there over Ronnie Stanley. And so I think for me, when I saw this, and I know you'll talk about this, so I don't want to I don't want to step on your toes or anything, but it does go back to trying to have an understanding of the assignments, right, and what guys are expected to do. And again, you and I talked about this before we started recording. We're making assumptions because we're not there, right? We're not in the Ravens facility. We're not at practice. We're not in their meeting rooms. We don't have access to the coaches or players to say, hey, what was what were the assignments on this play? What was supposed to happen, what didn't quite happen the way it was supposed to. We don't have access to any of that. And so we have to make assumptions based on film study and self-education. You and I both have, I mean, you've played, you've coached. We've tried to do things after our playing and coaching days have ended where we still continue to educate ourselves, whether that's coaching clinics or reading football books or watching, other kind of coaching resource or related stuff on YouTube. So you're always trying to educate yourself about this stuff. So when people say, well, how are you making these assumptions? Well, it's based on education, right? You're not just going to pull this out of the sky. But it is an assumption. And so, you always have to have that caveat, that kind of disclaimer that, hey, here's what I think the responsibilities were, or here's what I think is happening here. I could be wrong, but I have to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
I can't just kind of be out there all over the place. I gotta pick a baseline and go from there. And so, I just like to get that disclaimer out there because there's always going to be somebody who sees something differently. And that's what's great about this, is getting the different perspectives, and we're sharing our perspectives and we can learn from one another, where, you and I had a discussion earlier this week about an approach to something. Okay, well, I approach it this way. Well, you approach it that way. We kind of just talked it out back and forth and said, okay, I hadn't thought about it like that. So to me, that's the beauty of what this can be, when it kind of devolves into kind of gets down into like arguments and personal attacks. That's where I think we're losing it, right? We're not gaining anything out of that. So I think when we can engage in these kind of conversations, I think there's something for us to gain. So I'll stop there and let you get into.
Yeah, no, and you're nailing something, because I think that the value of doing a film room like this and why I'm enjoying it is I show my work and I talk through my assumptions. And if someone disagrees, I'm all ears. That. Like I'll talk about it. I'll admit if I'm wrong. I was wrong about that spider concept when I blamed Phillips last year in the Bills game. Like, it is what it is. You learn, you get better. But if you're not going to talk about the play, then I mean, we're just kind of throwing crap at the wall to see what sticks. So I'll walk through my assumptions on this play. As far as I know about running back pass protection, you typically read inside out. And that means that when the ball gets snapped here, you're going to see Williams take that step. And so I do think, and our guy, Matt Waldman, who is, my go-to for all things running back related, he does great work. He knows so much. Like, he's just incredible. He had this play at the end of his video. I'll actually drop that link down below so you guys can go check it out. I'd watch the whole video because he broke down Williams' entire first game, but this specific play and kind of what Williams was seeing was in the start. And you can see right here on the pause, he's looking left and he's seeing the DB come up. So he's going to step inside, and he sees the offensive line adjust to it, though. That's the difference here. And then what's he do? Scans right back to his right. And that's why, like, when everyone's talking about his awareness and pass protection, I didn't see too many problems. He seemed to know what he was doing. And this, I think, the fact that he steps inside like that is showing that he has inside-outside protection. So, who is the guy that causes the disruption? Who affects the quarterback? It's Carl Nassib. And so a lot of people refer to this as a stunt. And I mean, in a practical sense, it is a stunt. I guess the way I looked at it is this should have been an easier version of a stunt, because the movement is happening pre-snap. Like, the ball hasn't been snapped yet. He's moved. And, Waldman talked about it in his video. this was a great play by the Raiders. Nassib timed this perfectly. The DB came in at the right time. They tried to spread the edges and attack where they were having success and force these guys to kick step out. And you see it right there. Like the left side adjusts perfectly, but they're playing in a lot of space right there. And where the mishap happens is right here, is Crosby coming inside and AV following instead of passing off to Zietler. And so that is what I mean it's in the practical sense, it is a stunt, but KZ reads it and KZ pops up and he immediately kick. He's ready to take on Crosby's entire body here. And AV just needed to pass off and take Nassib. So in terms of, was this play on Alejandro Villanueva or Tyson Williams? If Tyson Williams has inside out and AV needs to pass off a stunt, I mean, I just don't really see how it's that debatable. Like, this is okay, pass off, and he should be kick stepping here to take on Nassib. You can't ask your running back to block an unblocked guy coming in. Like, and we can talk about Williams' technique. We can talk about reading this guy. We can talk about him being late to get back to the other side. I think all of that is relevant and it needs to be discussed. But in terms of whose man was the guy that affected the play, it's Alejandro Villanueva's. Like, this is a stunt pass off. We see this a million times a game. He's just got to make that play. So, that's how I look at it. I think that's a good, gives you a good sense of how I look at, using my knowledge of the game to try and apply it to any given play. It's, knowing that a running back typically has inside outside read protection. It's knowing how you hand off a stunt. It's identifying that was a stunt, and going from there. So, that's why I want to use that play specifically. I think it gives you a really good idea of how I kind of walk through that in my own head when I'm doing these film breakdowns. And so,
no, go ahead.
I'm talking too much, I'm just dying of thirst over here. No, that's was there anything else you wanted to add on that one, Mike?
No, I think you hit all the points. I would say the other thing to keep in mind about that, because people may look at that twist and kind of say, okay, it seems like something that should have been picked up, and why did he stay on the picker? Why he come down so far on the penetrators. I just used to call him a picker. Look, these guys had not worked together a ton, and Ravens fans will know that going back through the offseason and training camp. They had guys along the offensive line, variety of guys dealing with injuries. And I want to say it probably wasn't up until the last 2 weeks of the preseason where these guys really started, got a chance to work together as a unit in practice. And even then, at left guard, I think there was still kind of some rotation going there that wasn't necessarily injury related, but just trying to find a guy who was really going to like Greg Roman said, grab the brass ring and win the job. But for the others, for Villanueva and Zeitler, and obviously Stanley wasn't there because he was still coming back from his injury last year. These guys had worked together a whole lot. And so, to me, I'm looking at that and I'm like, well, this is a guy in Villanueva who's, what he played left tackle for 6-7 years with the Steelers. Yeah. So obviously a guy who understands, rushes and games and defensive front concepts. So I just think it was one of those things where it was like, all right, well, wait a minute. I don't know. I just don't have that comfort level yet. I just don't have that familiarity level yet with my right guard to make sure that he's got this guy. I'm just going to stay on it maybe a little bit longer than I should to make sure that I got this guy, because as you know, as a former, O-lineman and coach yourself, you ideally want to protect inside out, right? Inside pressure, yep. Inside penetration is like the last thing that you want to give up. So while it's something that I agree, you would expect a guy of his experience to be able to sort out pretty easily. I could kind of see why maybe he got caught slipping.
Well, and this is where I think it takes the analysis a step further, and it's just going on. It's going beyond what, and it's answering why. And I think that why is, there's more takeaways than just what happened. And that's something we've been trying to do here too. It's like, okay, here's what happened. Anyone can look at what happened, but why did it happen? Kind of my spin on this was what I thought happened was this is a guy that just beat you for 8 pressures on the day. You're going into this, it's overtime. You're exhausted. The game's been going on for so long. Who do you think he's looking at pre-snap when he sees that pre-snap alignment with Crosby out wide again? High leverage moment. We're in overtime. If I'm him, I'm probably looking at Crosby, not even paying attention to anybody else. I'm just trying to, win this rep and get home. I just want to go to bed at this point after this game. And so when he knifes inside, there's a little bit of that mental thing going on, right, too, where you're like, I just want to beat this guy. I just want to beat this guy. And so, again, I think all of that kind of factors into the why. And like I said, going beyond the what into the why is a goal of ours. And I think it's really important because, it helps you understand even further what's going on in these games. So, like I said, this is going to be a video I refer back to because I do think it gives you that kind of broad overview of how I'm applying the definition each game. I'm going to show my work. This is how I'm doing it. So, but you know what? I want to hear from you guys. Drop a comment below. What am I missing? Where am I off? Where am I on? Drop a comment, tweet us at on Twitter. You see our handles there. And, let me know what you think. And, of course, hit the like button, subscribe for more film moving forward. We're going to be having fun with this all year long. And that's all I have for you guys today. So be good to yourselves, be good to each other.